Hi everyone, it's Fitz with your daily delivery. Hope you're well. I am good. Getting ready to go to New Orleans. Been a busy week trying to compress everything for a road trip on Friday. Well, we're flying, but we got to go out of town. And then, of course, next week is another early week with a Friday game, and that'll get interesting. But today I'm going to talk about something going on that I think is really cool, and I hope you will participate in listening to the brand new Big 12 Today show on TuneIn Radio. It's a joint venture between the Big 12 and TuneIn, and the hosts are Ari Timken, who hosted the Big 12 show that I did quite often on SiriusXM, which they discontinued, and my friend James Westling, who is a Kansas State guy who's breaking into the business, kind of getting his foot in the door more and more, doing some ESPN games, doing other things, and they're really good together. And Ari, of course, is a KU grad, so a lot of sunflower flavoring in the new show. So make sure you check that out. And there's a reason why I mentioned that. But first, I got to mention this. Make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up and leave those comments. And I would like some comments about how you feel about what Brett Yormark said on a recent edition of that show. He was discussing the importance of basketball. And Ari Timken pointed out that really basketball right now represents about 10% of these media contracts that the networks are giving out, and yet it provides a lot of programming for those networks. Is it really only worth 10%? Well, Brett Yormark actually said something I've been waiting to hear. The exact value that the Big 12 believes should be built into those contracts or with a separate contract. So, what is that? Well, according to his estimates and through their consultants, basketball is actually about worth 30% of the contract, and the networks are getting basketball at a great discount. It just goes to prove why Brett Yormark thinks he can take basketball out of the current contract, which expires in 2031. So in 2030, they'll be in negotiations again, and possibly have two contracts, a football-only contract that just covers the football programs, and then a basketball and other sports contract. It could get interesting because those networks may not align. Turner Sports is really working their way back into the college game. I have said this before, but Brett Yormark knows the folks at Turner quite well from the NBA. And now that they're out of the NBA, they're going to be looking for content. They're dipping their toes into college football and college basketball, and by then they might be ready to go full bore into basketball. Also, he addressed trying to bring in some basketball-only schools, and he said, you know what, that's something right now we're not looking at. They're looking at complete university athletic programs that can come to the conference and really add value in football or basketball or whatever else they might bring to the table. They feel like they're getting that from the programs. Yeah, Houston's is struggling in football, but their basketball program is dominant. And if you can get the value out of basketball you believe is there and unrealized, then it's going to all start to pay off. That's why UConn's on the table, because they could boost that 30% of the contract significantly with their presence in the Big 12. And sure, their football team isn't very good and needs to build and needs to get better, but membership in the Big 12 will accomplish that eventually. Sometimes you invite programs for the future, not the present, and that's hard for people to understand. But the future for the Big 12 is going to be a combination of football and basketball. Brett Yormark wants to build a basketball product so powerful that the other conferences can't match it. And while it's only 30% or even 10% of the contract, boosting that value will close the gap on the SEC and Big Ten. And that's really what he's after. He's after finding the strengths of his own conference to balance out the tables with what is perceived to be the Big Two. Certainly the two conferences getting the most money from the networks. But basketball has value for the Big 12. And he's going to get that value out of the hoops programs.